And then that can some impact to organize them, but I would like to invite not about to touch kind of programs which can be a bit close. So as you journey can we get music at the back. We can occupy it. And then in the terms of Abraham, can you unmute yourself online to let us know whether you can hear as well, please?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
And, you know, in London, it's not better. It is when can have yeah, it's source. The Galata is the part of Noah, the village coming. In fact, like anyone else would like to resume to the can see the back films. Then our interest can come now. You are not able to know completely, it's like you can see. Them together. That and when also touch the here as well. Anyone, yeah, we understand that you might not be able to unmute, but in case you'd like to contribute, we can definitely allow you by you can raise your hand and then you can well, information advance here. All right, sorry. Thank you for that information. So I believe if you had a look at the program, you're supposed to officially start at 2, and right now it's 2 minutes past 2. So we need to respect your time. You you put aside other things to come and participate in this very important competition, and we appreciate you so much for that. So at this point, I would like to know whether we have any representative for yearly for the other. So I'm sharing a few details about what we are doing with the event today, and then after that, we can get some remarks from our focus. Then after that, we can dive into our conversation with our panelists and also our interactive conversation on the topic of the day. First of all, my name is Daniel, and I'm the executive director for Champions for SDGs Youth Organization that today has partnered with the UN Legal Group for Children and Youth and the Young Alumni Chapter of Kenya to host this follow-up conversation. We had a first dialogue last week on Tuesday at the Market of Court, the Kenya National Library Services in our field where we spoke about what avenues exist for young people to plug into engage in the United Nations Civil Society Conference that um, the United Nations in Nairobi last week. So today I also know that some of us who participated in the conference are also here and we get to hear from them on what we should pay attention to going forward. So our main objective today is to speak about the development agenda that there is and also the path for the future, share some knowledge around that space, and also look at what is next in the coming months as we lead up to the summit of the future in September. And which opportunity can you step in or take part in to ensure that you shape the next development agenda that is coming on? So I believe that gives you a good background of the reason as to why we are here. Um, at this point, I would like to know whether Terry has already joined. Terry, right. So once Terry joins, she will be able to leave a few remarks on behalf of the UN Media Group for Children and Youth. And then we'll also have some remarks from Mr. Joseph Kimani of the Danish embassy in Kenya. Have you already joined? So once Joseph also joins, we will be able to get some remarks from them, and get some remarks from our representative who we control for SDGs organization. So I think we can start with just for SDGs. Since I'll call upon Johnson to come and share a few remarks about happiness for SDGs plans. So you can check the stage from the good afternoon, and then it's not be a very long speech, but it's just an introduction of what the organization does.
Okay. I was confirming how few is the few minutes I'm being allocated. Hello, everyone. Hello, once again. Are you happy to be here or you are here to be happy? We are young people, so we need to be energized. So if you're happy, you know, clap your hands. If you're happy, you know, clap your hands. If you're happy, you know, and you really want to show, if you're happy, you know, clap your hands. If you're happy, you know, nod your head. If you're happy, you know, nod your head. Then we are all young people. So my name is Johnson Ongani. I'm part of Champions SDGs Youth. And those of us that have interacted with us before during our first dialogue that was scheduled on Tuesday last week, we were privileged to go a list of what Champions SDGs Youth does. And Champions SDGs is a platform for young people. And what we use to educate young people is education, drive or driven towards sustainable development goals. We empower young people by equipping them with the necessary information that they need to go about their various activities, their various organizations, their various work that they're doing, that they do at the community level. So we consist, and as you've noted, our executive director is a young person, Anna Bikonde, who is the team lead. And we are happy to always share these platforms with you. Maybe not to go far, that's why we did our first dialogue, was to equip young people with the information of what they were to expect in the conference that was held at UN, that was termed Civil Society Conference. And much of the deliberations were made, the Pact of the Future, Summit of the Future, and I believe today those of us that were lucky enough to attend the conference, and those of us who in one way or another didn't manage to attend the conference, we are going to share what was discussed, what were the outcomes. And then with the outcomes, how can we also position ourselves as young people and take advantage of these available spaces. So feel free to network, feel free to ask questions. I know we are also learning from you in as much as we are hosting this. We are all young people, we keep on learning. Learning is two-way travel. Sidio, I'm glad that you made time to come, and I hope that this day is going to be a productive. You coming in and you going out will be totally different. Thank you, and may God bless you. We also have our colleagues, and maybe I'm not should I introduce them or okay. We have the ones having us at the registration desk in Anna. Anna, could you wait? Are you happy to be here? If you're happy, can you not wait? We also have our colleague who is assisting doing our pictures. Timothy, could you please wave to us? Yes. So in case some of your pictures doesn't appear the same way or in a way you want them to appear, don't come to Arnold or myself or Anna. Go to Timothy. Nisawa? Great, great. Where are you here?
Hi everyone, my name is Lydia Intinyari, and I'm here to be one of learn how as a youth I can contribute to sustainable development growth achievements, and also to contribute on some of the things that will be discussed during the Pact for the Future in September 2024. Thank you.
You see your name is
Lydia Tinyari.
Lydia. Okay, thank you. Why are you here?
Good afternoon. My name is Jawad Rahimullah. Happy to be part of the founding chairperson to this thinking collaborative purpose. Right now, I'm doing this down and get focused things. The reason I'm here is to know, or else, and also outside campus, how I can still go ahead with the goal of mobilizing the youths and various levels to contribute to the realization of the goals. And also, the backdrop of the civil society conference and leading up to the end of the future, what I need to know and the skills maybe needed, or the additional information on how we can foster the realization of the goals, courtesy of the various speakers in the house. Maybe those who join us online, adding more information and just coaching the goal of achieving the global goals.
Thank you. You are currently interning with the Africa Voice Looking there. Thank you, Clive. I know you are going to, so I don't want to spoil it for you. Yes.
Hi everyone, I'm Chanchai, working with African Mental Health and Research Foundations. Why I'm here, basically we work with children, and I really want a whole background on what SDG 3 and 4 and 17 works in university. Thank you.
So let's look for the generation or level when I think I must present with the politics. To be someone, if you look, 21, 6 or 7, one you are children, still at the age of 8. And tomorrow some of us are going to be 70. So we need to know how can we involve each and every generation in this discussion. So that's a good one. Thank you. Sam.
Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Omiti. I represent Kenya National Chambers of Commerce. I'm Deputy Director for a non-profit called African Men's Farmers Foundation, dealing with agribusiness consultancy and capacity. Mainly, I'm here just to share knowledge, gain insights and tools on how we can navigate the SDG implementation. Thank you.
Right. That's a good one. He's bringing on board again a chamber there. And when talking about chambers, business comes into mind. How and business, the lens of CAPS also coming to support such like initiatives. Are we together? Where are you here?
Hi everyone, my name is Alice Dane. I am the founder of a community-based organization known as Bold Girl Unite, and I'm here to see how our programmatic activities are aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals.
So, what did you say now?
I am here to see how the programs at my organization are aligned with SDGs. Yeah.
So, she also brought something important. How can we use this information to align ourselves? Because when you're teaching, you want something from me, and in a way, I also want something from you. How can you align this with that? If you're teaching to an organization, how can you use the relevant information you're getting to also align yourself the same with other organizations? That's a good one. Hello, sir. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is now Implementor from Data Operations. I'm here as a policy analyst in regards to monitoring and evaluation of the SDGs. Where am I here is to able to understand the progress that the SDGs are doing, where interventions are needed, where challenges have been met, and the progress that has been made towards the SDGs.
Great. I also like his point. The progress that SDGs have made so far. When we are talking about progress, then there is a subject we cannot do away with, VNR, Voluntary National Review. Currently, as a country, we are reporting on 5 SDGs. SDGs number 1, number 2, number 13, number 16, and number 17. So we've always been talking about implementation, but where are we? Are we keeping record? Are we tracking what we are doing? That's a good one. Thank you. Yes, sir. Hi, everyone. Otiembo Joseph. Otiembo Joseph, I'm a founder of an organization known as Beyond the Bottle. Basically, Beyond the Bottle focuses, it deals with dealing with mental health. I mostly deal with the addiction because I'm a lived experience. I'm a lived experience from drug addiction and crime. So we formed an organization that deals with that. And it surprised me a lot, these SDGs are not as popular as we think. Personally, I have been running an organization without any information about SDG. So it's when I realized recently there are SDGs. So I think I'm still in the learning process. I want to see how we can align, the objective of my organization and those SDGs. Thank you. SDGs being used as a tool and again localizing it. Not most of us know about SDGs. So I'll give it to one of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnson. Thank you, Johnson, for that introduction and also allowing participants to introduce themselves. So at this point, I'd like to invite Terry Otieno to share some opening remarks on behalf of the UN Major Group for Children and Youth. And then after Terry, we will have Joseph Kimani from the
Hello. Taseni? Basi kama mnanisikia hiyo ni sawa. I'm glad to see all of you there. You are looking amazing and well put. So I unfortunately was not able to come back to Nairobi on time, and I'm doing this virtually. I am currently in Nyeri, Niko Ushago. So I can see we are about 16 participants online, and seems like all of us are from Kenya, which is good. So at least when I speak in Swahili, we are able to understand. So I would like to give welcome remarks, and instead of reading a written statement, I would prefer to do it in a normal, regular way. And so first, I would like to thank all of you for the immense support and contribution you had towards the UN Civil Society Conference. And in facilitating my role as a co-chair. So guys, sorry, I need to stop. Like I can hear my voice, like I'm speaking, I have to stop to hear the whole sentence come out and then say it again. I wonder if it's coming out clearly from your side. Okay.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, now I can't hear myself. I hope you guys can hear me. Okay, cool. I'll assume. No, I can hear myself again. You can do what you had done before. And text me if I'm not being heard.
We can hear you well. I think you can proceed.
Sawa sawa. So I was saying I'm very grateful for all the support I received, especially from Kenyan youth and also the regional and global level that allowed me to work efficiently as a co-chair for the intergenerational and youth subcommittee. That was one of the 10 subcommittees that made up the planning committee for the civil society conference. I know so many of you or interacted with you through the forms that you filled, and we facilitated some of you attending the pre-conference and post-conference if you were not able to attend the meeting, the conference itself. And so I'm just super, super grateful for all the support that I got as an individual, as a co-chair, and also as a representative of the major groups of children and youth, which is also a partner for this debriefing. And I would very much hope that all of us have at least signed up for our MGCY newsletter. If you have not, please Google MGCY website. If you just Google those letters, MGCY, then you just write website. If you do that, that website will come up. But in full, it's major groups for children and youth. And then you go down to get involved, or you hover around the toggle on menu and make sure that you select get involved, register as an individual or as an organization. Because if the civil society was not space enough for you to realize that as an individual or as a youth-led organization, the MGCY is the go-to place when you want to get involved within the UN processes, then let me remind you of the same right now. The MGCY has given a space to a lot of youths who have managed to come from grassroots organization to the global level and finally get absorbed for different opportunities in various organizations. So it's a good place, it's a good home for all of us. And I hope that we get to see your name and email, so we share correct information that is timely for with you. And yeah, so that is it. And so for today, we are here to debrief. Like after an event, we have to come back, sit down, and evaluate how was the event, what did people get, were our objectives met, and what challenges did the people who attended the conference face. Is there something we can learn from the good sides of how the event went or the downside? And how can we do better in the upcoming event? And so that's why we're here today. And we always know, regardless of the process that we are talking about, the 17 SDGs are always at the center. And if I go back to why we have the civil society conference, it was happening to support the summit of the future that will happen in September. And so to understand both these processes, the SDGs are still tied at the center, because the Pact, which is the outcome document of the summit of the future, is going to reinforce existing frameworks, and the first framework it's going to reinforce is Agenda 2030, which is the 17 sustainable goals. So that is why we are here. And pleased to also be here virtually as an individual. Like, I want to also participate. I want to make sure that I was on the planning side, but at the same time, I am also a participant. So yeah, glad to have joined this session, and I hope it's going to be fruitful. Back to you, Arnold. Karibuni.
Thank you so much, Terry. Let's clap for Terry for those introductions. Thank you so much. So at this point, I'd like to invite Mr. Joseph Kimani. I'd like to, before Joseph comes in, I'd like to highlight that the Embassy of Denmark in Denmark supports a lot development work across the world, and they pay keen attention to the sustainable development goals, and also the system coming up with the future that we are all participating in right now. And I am one of the youth founding board members, and of the Embassy of Denmark will able to get refreshments for our activity today. So I'd like just to give that brief background, and then invite Mr. Joseph Kimani to give a few remarks about the great work that the embassy does, and also about the meeting that we had today. Karibu sana, Joseph.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Very good, thank you. I'm very pleased to join you today, and congratulations, Arnold, for putting this together. We are very proud as the Danish embassy that you are one of our youth sounding board members. And in that capacity, we are always happy to come in and support whatever you are doing. So we are very pleased and very proud to be associated with you and the great work that you are doing. And of course, I can see here you're quite a number of people, and all of you seem very, very, very keen to do some very good work this afternoon. So well done to everybody who has been able to gather here. Just a few points that I would want to highlight. For the Sustainable Development Goals, we all, I'm sure, are aware that we only have until 2030. So we barely have 6 or so years to 2030. Yet the work that remains to be done is so much, but that should not discourage us. What we should now do is to engage in a sprint, add more energy, add more oomph, so that we try as much as we can to catch up on the very ambitious goals that are there. Though, of course, it will not be possible to achieve them, all of them, but what we cannot afford to do is to despair. And the efforts that you are taking today are in alignment with that, where we are saying that, look, there is much more work to be done, but you shall not stop making an effort to try and move towards the attainment of that. And indeed, it is much more important, I dare say, for you as young people to be much more involved in the Sustainable Development Goals. Because whenever you talk about the SDGs, we are not only talking about the present, but the SDGs, in my view, is a promise both for the present and the future. So it is you who must be much more involved in the Sustainable Development Goals, because if we do not do the right thing today, then we shall be robbing you, the young people, whom we expect to be around much longer. We shall be robbing you of the future. So I am very pleased, and I must congratulate you for being there, for showing up, for saying that you are going to invest in the kind of future that you need. So well done for your engagement on the Sustainable Development Goals. There was a very important conference last week, and I know that's part of what you shall be doing today, where you shall be sharing reflections on the UN Civil Society Conference that took place last week, here in Nairobi for the first time, happening in the Global South. So that's very good that it took place here in Nairobi. I attended it, and I was very pleased that there were quite a number of young people. Of course, much more can be done to ensure that youth are better represented. But even if most of you are not able to make it, I can say this without fear of contradiction, that you had excellent representation through the likes of Arnold and other young people that I had the distinct pleasure of interacting with. Having said that, what is much more important is to look at the resolutions of that particular conference. There are clear resolutions that were made, and from where we sit as Denmark, and for information, Denmark was one of the key donors for that particular conference. So we have a very direct investment and interest in making sure that the resolutions of that conference are implemented, so that the UN Civil Society Conference that took place last week will not be categorized as one of those ordinary conferences whereby people come, they speak very well, they meet, and then they leave, and then there's nothing to show for it afterwards. So I am very happy that you are gathered here today to focus precisely on that. Now that the conference was there, now that there were certain resolutions, what then? The implementation of those resolutions. I can say this very clearly, that we as Denmark are committed to doing our part to make sure that the resolutions actually come to fruition. And we cannot do this on our own. We shall rely on good people like yourselves who are committed and have the right kind of attitude to contribute towards those particular resolutions. This conference, of course, is a precursor. It comes before the Summit of the Future. When we talk about the future, we are talking about the young people. We are talking about you. So it is essential that you are actually at the center of the table. Where we sit as Denmark, we see young people being essential and being primary to any plans that you're talking about the future. So once again, Arnold, well done for putting this together. Thank you for inviting me to this particular convening. And you can be sure that whenever we are able to, we shall always support in our own ways. So thank you, and I wish you the very best in your deliberations. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for looking forward to come and join our meeting today, despite the busy schedule that you have. So thank you so much once again, and we hope to continue getting your support and also supporting each other to drive the development agenda. So at this point, I'd like to invite Fred Jr., representing the Yali Alumni of Kenya, to give some opening remarks. And then after that, we can dive into the panel session committee. Fred.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. You all doing well? By show of hands, how are you doing this afternoon? By show of hands, if you're doing well, and if you're doing averagely well. If you're doing well,
by show of hands. Averagely well? Okay. So what do we do to averagely well? So providing solutions to how to deal with those who are doing averagely well. But I think SDGs addresses more than what we are failing to address in this book now for people doing averagely well. My name is Fred Tuli, the chairperson of YALI Kenya. It's my humble pleasure to stand here before all of you to share with you great insights and the great work that young people are doing on the SDGs and related fields. This is our second edition of the My Youth Now SDGs Dialogue. The first edition was done last week at the Kenya National Libraries. That's where our offices are in Hapai. And again, let me just see by show of hands how many of us were there for the first edition. Clap for them for that. Now, these are individuals who understands and identifies the need for us to continue this conversation. YAN stands for Young African Leaders Initiative, President Obama leadership program that was started way back in 2010. It's a competitive leadership program where you apply, go to the US, or you train here at generic innovation and innovation centers. Our work is to champion and to advocate for transformative leadership with over 1,700 members spread across the country. Change each and every the most important challenges and creating solutions to mitigate such threats we face. And that's why the SDG dialogue is at the center of what we do at YAG, where we believe that every single young person working towards addressing the 17 SDGs is at the center and at the forefront of making a real impact in their community. And so we are working with all these partners, young champions for SDGs, the special group for children and youth, the Danish embassy, and all these other important partners. I like the strength and the opportunities young people can to get in addressing and coming up with very vital ways to advocate for the SDGs. And so, as I make my brief, opening remarks to you and with you is to ask you to be very open-minded, be very ready to learn, and also make very important contributions needed for this session to be a success. And without further, ladies and gentlemen, just by show of hands, as your chairperson, it's important for me to take note of my members who are already in this meeting. And we start by Arnold, by show of hands, how many members of YARI are in there? Arnold, your hand is not hard. So that can show that we are at the center of this conversation, and as partners, we are working towards making sure that SDGs, very partners, is at the very, very top priority of our work here. Okay, so keep the conversation, keep the engagements, and I look forward to getting more and more all of you engaged here. Thank you so much. Let's have a fruitful discussion.
Let's give praise another. Yeah. Thank you so much. So at this point, I don't want us to spend any more time. I want us to delve into the conversation for the day. And for that, I'd like to invite Christian to take it up from here. Christian will introduce what we are going to talk about, and then invite speakers of the day to address pertinent issues that she already would like us to highlight, and those that you shared when you registered in the registration form. So let's start for Christine as she.
Lovely. I don't know the third name is Tinka Raja. I'm happy to see a vibrant full room of SDG advocates. As it's mentioned on the poster, I am the campus director at the University of Nairobi for Sustainable Development Goals and the Millennium Fellowship Program. Additionally, I'm an SDG 17 advocate, among other roles. Yes. So without further ado, we are going to get into the program where I would like to first of all recognize and welcome you all, but also our very esteemed panel, including Clive, and maybe we can have you guys it's over there if that's not too much for us, or how would you rather have it? Yes. I'm sorry to displace you. Yes, so we are here to speak on the debrief for the Civil Society Conference. I was privileged to take part in it as a member of the Intergenerational and Youth Subcommittee alongside around 30 members led by Terry as co-chair, as well as the likes of Cairo and Christine Bodiford. It was encompassing multinationals, and what we were doing primarily as the Intergenerational and Youth Subcommittee, as the name says, is to try and create a bridge where this conversation, because it's about the future, it was a conference that was a preamble for the summit of the future that is coming. So with regards to the future, we cannot talk about the future without addressing the past. And also, by the time this future is coming, we will be the elder generation at that time. So it is in your best interest, I would think, to also plan for that time and be engaged. And I'm happy to see you all doing this. So as they set up, I would like to know by a show of hands in the room, who is familiar with what the focus area are, not just for Kenya and the Berlin National Review, but also globally the strategy and the focus SDGs that the UN is focusing on. There are 5. Yes, anyone in the room, feel free to raise your hand and tell me. Sure. From Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. Your name?
Thank you. Again, Steven, so I think there are a number, but you mentioned one that's security, is security. And there's another for youth generation. Then I think there's another one that has to do with finance.
Thank you, and feel free again to chime in. He's gotten one right only, but that is SDG 16. But he's mixed them up with chapters for the Pact of the Future. So the focus areas for the UN and globally, but also encouraged for us that we are in line in SDG 1, which is zero poverty, 2, no poverty, zero hunger, 13, which is climate action, 16, peace, and 17, which is partnership for the goal. He has preempted the Pact of the Future. So Pact of the Future is an outcome document from what is the Summit of the Future, and it is shortened. It's a document that currently the Zero Draft is about 34 pages. So it's been shortened into 4 chapters. I'll allow my guests, or rather my panelists, to get into that. They are all experts in this field. Can I see the setup has happened? You don't have to move? Okay. Yeah. So Karen will be joining us virtually. As she introduced herself, she did not mention that she's the global focal for UNDRR, that's Sendai Group for Disaster Risk Management. Clive is with CYMG, that's the Children and Youth Major Group for UNEP. No move and data. So we're going to pivot a little. I've introduced the two panelists, and Clive, if you can join us. That's at the front. Unfortunately, our third rep with Ahmed Noor, I've had the privilege of working with him in the UN Advisory Board for Kenya. He's with the sounding board for the EU. He could not make it today. We wish him a quick recovery. And in his place, we will have a volunteer from the audience. I'll give you guys a minute. If any of you, this is a unique opportunity, you got to take part in the Civil Society Conference. And because this is a debrief, you will be able to take part just like the other guests, but additionally as a participant, to be able to give your insights, your hopes, and maybe your recommendations going forward. So if I'll give you a minute, raise your hand, think about it, as we allow Claire to give his opening remarks, and then we'll move to Terry, and then into the questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So my name is Clive Bradley. I am a youth and climate policy advisor, and I am also a policy thematic facilitator for the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP. And I'm really looking for an interactive dialogue today with everyone here. And I hope by the end of this session we will be, having some consensus as youths, enhancing our common positions and commitment in the deliberations on issues around the Summit of the Future, issues around the Pact, and also tracking what is on the SDGs, what needs to be done, and how we young people can accelerate our commitment in tackling this issue. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And we are privileged to be joined by Ines Yobar. She is one of 10, yes, 10 global next gen fellows under the UN Foundation. I had the privilege in 2023 to work with her in the SDG engine group alongside other leaders, including mine. Mine was also a co-chair for our subcommittee in the conference that just concluded. And I would like her to also join the panel. Good that she came, but we'll have her influence of Ahmed, and I'm still waiting for a participant in the audience for anyone who wants to join, even as she speaks. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Hi, everyone. So, my name is Ina, what just being said, and I was at the CSO conference, basically bringing the fact that data shows the future generations are in Africa. So when we talk about future generations, if we think towards 2100, 50% of the world will live in Africa. And 30% will live in Asia. So only 20% will live in the rest of the world. I am from Peru, so I am from that 20%. So when we think about the future and we think about the data, we need to think that if countries today in Africa aren't being supported in the SDGs that have just been mentioned before, how can we think about the future? I'm sure that you and your examples of your communities, when you think about people who are lacking water, who are lacking education, who are lacking SRHR, those are the people that we're thinking about also for the future. And we're currently only 15% on track for the Sustainable Development Goals, which means we're 85% behind reaching those goals. And it can seem quite alarming, but in my job, I work with young people through the engine room that Christine mentioned, supporting young people all over the world to research, campaign, and deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals, making sure that we're doing this in a way that's not extractive, but that is supporting that leadership of young people. So I don't think I should talk much because I'm not African, although I have lived in Africa. But I would love to be a resource for you if there's any data you need, any campaigning support, any programs that you're leading. I'm staying in Kenya for the next 3 weeks after the civil society conference because I believe it's important to connect with the local communities and understand what you guys are doing here. But I'm only here really, I was sitting at the back because I just wanted to listen and I've been roped in to be here at the front. But yeah, I'm here just to support in whatever you need.
Very much. We are vibrant youth. We are called upon, and at any time you get an opportunity, I encourage you to take it up. This opportunity, even us being the civil society being brought to Kenya, was very strategic. Because given the future, as she said, 50% by 2100 will be in Africa. We cannot be talking about the future without guys who are going to be in the future. And given you will not all be able to attend, some of you might, but you won't be able to attend the Summit of the Future in September. So this was an opportunity for you to take part in the pre-conference, post-conference, action conference, but also give your inputs to the Pact that is still open right now. So now, without further ado, we'll get into the questions. I'm still waiting on that one person. And if not, because I know most of you, I will pick on some. As you can see, I'm not shy to pick on people. So we are going to start with input from the panelists, including Terry. Don't forget that Terry is also a member of the panel, virtually. And we'll start with what they got from the conference. So what were the key highlights from the just concluded UN Civil Society conference? And we will start with you, Clive, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you. So during the civil society conference, we saw there were so many stakeholders that came in Nairobi, and this was the first time the civil society conference was coming to Nairobi. Although since 1947 we've had this was the 69th civil society conference, and it was the first time it was being held in Nairobi. And the agenda of the summit civil society conference was to bring stakeholders from different regions, over 700 stakeholders, civil society units, and the discussions in the civil society conference were in relation to the summit of the future agendas and majorly redefining our common commitment to the future. And therefore, this conference was very vital in ensuring that the proposed roadmaps in ensuring we're developing a resilient future. And we also had youth events that were also included in this civil society conference. We had a Youth Plus session 3 in the pre-civil society conference. And even during this civil society conference, the young people had an opportunity to have a bilateral with the ambassadors who are the co-facilitators to the Summit of the Future, and various issues of concern were raised by young people, including the environmental agenda, which does not predominantly feature into the Summit of the Future. And therefore, right now, there are ongoing work. The deliberations is still ongoing, and various reports are being compiled that will be shared after this. And I believe Terry is also in a better position to share on this.
Yes, and thank you for that. We will come back to you for you to share your highlights, your personal highlights. And as you preempted, we will now go to Terry, if that's okay, so that Terry can tell us what these reports might encompass.
So there were several highlights for the conference. As an individual, I take the first one to be the announcement by our president that said that the CSO registration process is now streamlined. We got confirmation that now things can be, the paperwork and all and documentation can be done from one point, and that was a plus, and that international organizations will also not struggle when they want to set up and work in Kenya. So that is a personal highlight for me. But from the planning perspective, one of the key things to got, which is the highlight of this conference, is of course the fact that we had the co-facilitators of all the three important frameworks, that is the Pact, which is the Pact of the Future, which is the outcome document of Summit of the Future, and the other two frameworks that will be annexed into it, the Declaration on Future Generations and the Global Digital Compact. The fact that we had these co-facilitators present in the conference, and they interacted with the civil society individuals and at the organizational level, and picked our key recommendations, and like probably have now fed into the now released revision 1 of the Pact, which is 19 pages, is a really, really great highlight for me. It's actually the first plus. And also the fact that we're going to have a co-chair summary coming out in a week or so, that is going to inform our future direction as civil society conference, given that this conference was this year, there's none other. So the one that will come next year, which is the 70th, will be informed by the way this conference was structured and brought. The third point, which is the third highlight, will be the creation of impact coalitions that are foreseen to inform the subsequent revisions of the Pact, but to also outlive the Pact, which is in September when the Summit of the Future comes out. It comes and goes. The fact that these impact coalitions can still be in place is a really good aspect of as an outcome of this conference. Given the fact that most of the times conferences always just end up giving recommendations, written recommendations, the fact that this conference was the first one to bring up something that is going to outlive it by many years, possibly if it is supported, that is also a really good highlight to pinpoint. And the fourth highlight for me would be that we had a lot of young people. Now this will bring me to talk about my position that Christine had mentioned, that I'm a global focal point with the major groups of children and youth, which facilitated over 300 plus registrations of youth by connecting youths with suitable organizations that will give the recommendations letters that were required to facilitate registration to attend the conference in person. And so that's another highlight, that we had a lot of young people. And also we had a lot of women in the conference, but at the same time, we had a lot of Africans. Like that's just a whole point where we had good representation of young people, we had women, and we also, it was a really good platform to showcase or discuss and interact with fellow Africans who have different perspectives. And talking about different perspectives will bring me to the fifth highlight of the conference, which is that I realized we as Africa need to talk much more about Agenda 2063. When we interact with people, will be like, you're talking about Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development Goals, but then no one is talking about the Africa we want. And as a region, we have to first focus on what will make us whole at home before we go out. And so much as we are paying attention to Agenda 2030, it's also important for us to know that there exists Agenda 2063, which is for Africans by Africans, spearheaded by the African Union. And so if we can also start talking much more about the Africa we want and look at the indicators and the objectives in the Agenda 2063, that will be a way forward for us. And so those 5 key highlights are what I got from the conference. Thank you.
Terry, that was very very insightful and a compact 5-point highlights. As she said, the revised zero draft is now down to 19 pages, so it makes it even easier for you to go through them. And then there's also, you say, the co-chair summary. We'll be looking forward to that. The creation of impact coalitions. You can look out for them on the UN Civil Society Conference website if you aren't familiar with them, because this, as she said, is going to include the Pact. And then you can see how to engage in either one of those impact coalitions. They range from intergenerational conversation, multilateralism, to artistic, how you can engage as youth in advocacy through artistic spaces. And then there was also, and before I jump into what my highlights were, I'll allow Ines to share what highlights were.
Thank you, Christine. I think for me, the number one highlight is the people. And the fact that, like, for instance, Christine and I have worked together for a year and we had never met. So when you meet the people who are leading the work and you've seen them behind the scenes and you meet in person, you feel like you've known them forever. And I think that's missing sometimes in our multilateral space and in like country negotiations. People fly in, fly out, they come in and they come out, but the work that's happening is way beyond a conference, is way beyond a moment. It's in everything that everyone here is doing and that so many people online do and can't be in these spaces. So that was my first highlight. I would say the same as Terry in terms of impact coalitions. These coalitions, currently I think there are 20, but correct me if I'm wrong, are a way for civil society to say we are doing, we are not just saying. We are connecting, we are working, we are mobilizing. The ones I was engaged in was the one on future generations, which is separate to the one of children and youth. And again, I think as young people, we're getting caught up in the narrative that we are future generations. No, we are young people now. Future generations are those yet to be born. Still, I think 10 million by the end of the century. So all these people that are yet to come, we're being burdened with them when it should be the whole world that is working on that. So that impact coalition was interesting to me. And the children and youth one, of course, but it's children and youth and intergenerational, right? And so how do we make sure we're not working in silos and just having a conversation among young people, but having conversations with key stakeholders as well. And as Terry mentioned, having the co-facilitators there, I think was a key strong message. Having the Secretary General come, the president of your country as well, like making sure these conversations weren't siloed in civil society only, I think was key to this conference's success. And the third point I would say was the tangible outcomes of what comes out of this conference now. Of course, impact coalitions. Financing was a big topic as well. How do we fund civil society? How do we make sure that we're not just stuck with good ideas, but we can actually implement them? And storytelling. How do we make sure we share those stories from our communities that maybe can't make it to a global conference, can't make it to Nairobi as such? How do we make sure that those stories are ones that are shown to the world? So we'll be launching a big campaign for the Summit of the Future that will bring all those stories together. And the CSO conference was a good moment for us to stop, take, and say, okay, what stories do we want to share? How do we want to share them? What artists do we want to collaborate with? And not like the big names, but really local artists who are here raising their voice to share stories about realities that they have seen on the ground.
Great. By a show of hands, how many made it to the conference? I will not pick any. We've filled that slot. I stepped in, and now we're going to engage freely and share ideas. Maybe the limelight is not yours, but in future, take up the space. So how many were able to make it there? I just want to be inclusive so that you can also share your highlights if there is one. Yes, so as you think about coming forward, I'll share my highlight. My highlight included taking part in organizing a global conference. As a member of the Intergenerational Planning Subcommittee, I had a lot of learnings of what it takes to do it, and we had to do this in 9 weeks, which had never been done before for the UN Civil Society Conference. It was also a privilege because it's the first to be held in Africa. So for me, that was a huge highlight. There's also certain speakers spoke to me. There is Mithika, you might know him from Pact. He runs the Climate Summer School. So his comments as civil society, as you know, civil society is what in Kenya we call kawaida mwananchi, in a sense, when it comes to these engagements formally. So in terms of that as my highlight, was where I saw it because he spoke truly to what we were seeing. The conference happened at a time when Kenya was grappling with the situation and the humanitarian crisis brought about by the floods. So we saw Mithika speak on it. Antonio Guterres came and spoke on it. So sometimes the conversations can be out of touch with what is happening on the ground. So I felt like this was addressed, and we also saw funds directed towards it. During that, the likes of Terry, who is under Sendai, you know, that to be the framework that is mandated with disaster risk management in terms of the UN. They held a side event alongside that on disaster risk management and sensitization. So that for me gave me a sense of peace. Beyond that is perspectives from people, because I got to interact with people. We had something called the Intergenerational Hub. At the Hub, we encouraged people to come and give their commitment. Instead of saying, in general, I am an SDG what advocate. So for instance, you can come, you said you're in mental health or you would want to be in mental health, come and share your specifics. Because with the time being so short towards 2030, we can't be generalizing it as I'm an SDG3. And for you to have an impact as an advocate, you need to narrow it down so that even if someone is trying to replicate it, we can say, this is what I am doing. So we commit now your way as attendees and can still continue to, it's still a campaign, and for us to give what our commitment is. We got guys like Guy Ryder, who is the head of policy at the UN, to give his commitment, and the guy is around 70. So it doesn't, in terms of incorporating technology, it doesn't stifle you to just a certain age group. So conversation about intergenerational partnerships and collaboration for me was very encouraging, because sometimes when we think about the future, it can be very dim in that sense, and seeing that we can rely on the older demographic to sort of put in a pipeline. Because what you're doing today, if you plan it well, will ensure that by the time you're getting into your 60s and 70s, you will not be encountering what is projected to be worse global or planetary crisis. Perspectives from other people. As you know, this is a global conference. So I got to meet people who might not be as fortunate as we are, having a UN headquarter in the country. That tells you there's reach. The fact that there is also an entryway in terms of policy. There is places where democracy does not, is being stifled. We're seeing what is happening in Georgia. Civil society is stifled. So there's untapped opportunity. Perspectives from other people taught me that these untapped opportunities we are not speaking to as African and also as Kenyans. And beyond that, as said, coming together as youth and seeing the power of us in that platform that gave me hope if we can work together for SDG 17. Now, I will encourage you to visit their website. I will encourage you to visit the website, the UN Civil Society Conference, for you to see what were the updates or highlights from that and what is going to happen going forward. There's also something called the Walls IO. We'll try and put that in the follow-up email. Walls IO is where we were capturing what was the digital narrative. So on top of being able to see that storytelling can be a story, for the outcomes of this, even as we debrief, you can be able to see what was shared online. It captured any hashtag or anything you put around the civil society conference. We have a hand from online, I think. Yes?
Yes, I think.
Go ahead. Maybe unmute them, feel free to speak, or what your highlight was. As we work on that, I will go on to the next question for our panelists. And again, as we go, and I still want to hear your highlights or recommendations for this. Are we able to have them speak now?
Yes.
Okay. Sure, go ahead. Please unmute and speak. Menene. Send us a thumbs up if you actually intended to speak. So then, we would like to hear what is the Summit of the Future. It has been preempted here. As you know, the conference was being held in support of the Summit of the Future. And this time we'll start on me and then go. Yes, we'll start from my right to my left. What is the Summit of the Future, what is about, and the Pact of the Future?
Maybe before I start explaining, who knows what the summit of the future is? If you could raise your hand, or I can explain from the start. That's fine if you don't know, that's why we're here. Okay, good. So I'll start with the very basics. Each year, the UN Foundation has a General Assembly in New York in September. And generally, there is a theme attached to it. So in 2022, it was the Transforming Education Summit. Last year, it was the SDG Summit because we were halfway through the SDG agenda. And this year is the Summit of the Future. So all heads of states, unless they send someone to replace them, will be in New York for for a couple days probably, in September, discussing about the future. When you think about the future, a lot of elected leaders don't think too far, right? They think in their elected cycle. They think 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, or who knows. So this Summit of the Future is quite transformational because it's forcing leaders to think beyond their own election cycle. It's forcing them to think, what does my country look like in 100 years, 200 years, or more? What does it look like for the communities that I am leaving behind? And of course, this is a conversation that's hard for member states, but it's also hard for the UN. The UN has a Security Council, for instance, which has only a limited number of countries in it, and only 5 have a veto power. So this Summit of the Future is posing the question, is it fair to have a UN that has a limited number of countries that can veto any decision and say, no, I don't agree? These are the countries that had won the Second World War. So the Summit of the Future as a broad concept is a way for us to re-question our governance systems, both locally and globally, and make sure that the decisions we're making today are not only for today, but they're for the future. The Sustainable Development Goals do that, right? But as they become tangible in our realities, sometimes we're thinking about this one school or this one road, but how do we think about it holistically? All the decisions that we make today, what is the impact for the generations to come? And out of this summit, or in preparation for this summit, Terry mentioned there are 3 different processes of documents that are being developed. The Declaration for Future Generations, the Global Digital Compact, and the Pact for the Future. And each of those are being developed by member states. The way that civil society was invited to participate in that process was by inputting. What do you think is important? How do you think governance should change? How do you think AI is going to impact the sustainable development? How do you think peace and security should be addressed? What do you think young people and future generations have to say on this? So there were a series of consultations, and now they're in final drafting mode, so that in September, countries come together and agree, okay, we all agree that this is important, and this is how we're gonna action that. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, it's not looking very pretty. Documents that hundreds of countries need to agree on will often be diluted in a way. But we're hoping that this is a transformation and catalytical moment that allows the UN to think, to plan, and to act for the future, and supporting member states to do that as well.
Great. Claire, would you like to go first?
Okay, yeah, that was a great overview on it. So, because today we are facing unprecedented challenges from climate change, from pollution, biodiversity loss. Now, in 2021, during the COVID lockdown, member states decided during the 75th UN anniversary, member states came together and they had a common commitment in accelerating ways that we can enhance future generations are protected. And now through this 75th anniversary, the Secretary General of the UN was requested to present a document on responding on how to tackle challenges of the future in capturing present and future generations. Now, in 2021, the UN Secretary General presented this document called Our Common Agenda. So in our common agenda, it is an overview on how future generations can have a common commitment in ensuring that the future is protected. And now through this document, member states decided to adopt a consensus on having the summit of the future, which will now which is now discussing about these issues, and the Pact of the Future, which is now annexed into it. It has 5 chapters talking about international peace and security. It's talking about the future generations, innovation, technology, and now currently the deliberations are ongoing, and more inputs have already been submitted, and member states and so that is why we had a summit of the future. And so, we had the civil society conference just to predominantly feature on these issues. And so, because today, talking about the sustainable development goals, we are on a backtrack, and we are not achieving we have a deficit in achieving the sustainable development goals. And that is why it is also very critical to have critical avenues like this, which are facile in ensuring that these issues are featuring predominantly in the ongoing negotiations and also in the additional to the texts that have already been proposed. So therefore, the Summit of the Future has an ambitious chapters that have already been set. But within these chapters, already as youth constituencies, we've already provided, various issues that we feel should be added into it. For instance, the future, as future generations and people who are committed towards, seeing that environment is protected with adverse impact of climate change. We also propose that the environmental agenda is missing. When you check on the Sustainable Development Goals, the wider environmental agenda does not feature predominantly into it. So these are one of the key issues that we suggested in it. Another thing is that in the Pact of the Future, we have a chapter that talks about reimagination of the international financial architecture. As we know, the global south, we are right now more into, we have more climate debts, and we are calling for a reimagination of international financial architecture. The IMFs, the World Banks, they need to be reimagined so that we can have a common commitment when it comes to ensuring that climate finance is being shared, is being enhanced. For instance, talking about the climate finance, one of the key issues we know right now, there's a greater conversation on the loss and damage finance, which is a finance that helps in cushioning countries or communities that have experienced climate change beyond what they can adapt to. For instance, right now, Kenya has witnessed one of the devastating adverse weather patterns, which is floods. This climate loss and damage finance, it's supposed to help in, cushioning these local communities and ensuring that, the loss and damage that has been affecting these communities, the countries, local communities, they can try to build back better. So these are just one of the key issues that predominantly feature into the Pact of the Future. Another thing is the international peace and security. As we know, the global south countries, we are not part of we do not have a permanent seat into the United Nations Security Council. And so one of the proposals that we've been trying to bring this conversation is we want Africa to have a permanent seat into the UN Security Council, because we see currently countries are taking unpredictable decisions with unpredictable consequences, and these are profound risks, miscalculation. In this, I mean, when we check on the conflicts in DRC, the genocide that is ongoing in Palestine, the war in Ukraine, and all these other conflicts, we find that countries are using a lot of money to finance wars. Instead of this money needs to be put into enhancing, climate commitments, enhancing ambitious ways to safeguard the future generations. When you talk about the future generations, these are the key issues that I believe we need to have more ways, and also call our own leaders to be accountable. And we want to see ways that we can enhance the coherence in all these issues. And the Summit of the Future in New York, of course, not everyone will be able to be in New York. And we have ongoing virtual consultations that have been very informative for young people to take part in them. But again, we are calling for ways to enhance youth inclusion in all these discussions. Yeah, thank you.
Vijay Semo, Terry, what do you have to add in terms of Summit of the Future? I know you've said quite a bit, but any additional remarks?
Well, as you can hear my mother speaking. Dearest mother, I'm in a meeting. So sorry, guys. So my short answer to what of defining what Summit of the Future is will be in a sentence, because both the panelists have done a great work in elaborating it in depth. I'm just going to say it is a conference that is going to address our challenges. What challenges are these? The shortcomings, the fact that we have not yet met the Agenda 2030, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So this conference is coming to reinforce Agenda 2030 with the hopes that it's going to accelerate its implementation. And what is the Pact? The Pact is the outcome document of the conference. The Pact will, as I've said, give actionable strategies on how to accelerate the implementation of Agenda 2030, but also it will give us an opportunity to address the new challenges that have come up that were not addressed in Agenda 2030 when it was being developed. So that's the short form of what Summit of the Future is and what the Pact will contain.
Great. So if you forget everything, please remember that the Summit of the Future is essentially a pivot from the 2030 in order to make it feasible and sustainable for the future that is coming. As you understand, 2030 was the revision of the Millennium Development Goals. So if you think of it as a roadmap, that's how you need to see it. And so for us, with everything emerging issues that is coming, think of AI. AI, had you thought of it 2015, it would not be a conversation. That's why we have things like the Global Digital Compact. I was able to fit into one of the plenaries for that. And as I can tell you, the perspective of the Kenyan, that was when it needed to be done, as you've had people like Meta come here to train this machine learning, but there's no data protection in as much as Kenya has the most protective data protection laws. So until we engage with such forums, this knowledge will pass us and we will not be at the table. So this is why you're encouraged to do the consultations, as we said, that are finalizing and ongoing. please give your input wherever you find this thing happening, so that even as the future is being mapped out, your voice is there, because you're definitely going to be there in the future. So moving on, we're going to get to the next question. And I'll allow anyone in the room with a question, a comment, input on Summit of the Future, the draft, or the 5 chapters of the Pact to give their input now. Yeah. Silence means contentment. So without further ado, I think we'll go ahead. And the next question is, what are the key engagements that will be taking place going forward until the Summit of the Future? And this time I'll throw it to Terry. If that's okay, we can start with you.
Cool. So as MGCY, we have a number of consultations, hybrid consultations coming up. That means some will be in person, some will be virtual, and we will also endeavor to make sure that we create an event like this one, where it's both virtual and in person. And we also have many more processes, especially the high-level political forum that is happening in July, again, to reinforce our messages and what would be put into the second draft, the revision of the pact. But also the third way of engagement, something that we have planned, would also be individual organizations. If you can now streamline and disseminate what you know about Summit of the Future and the Pact, that will also be amazing. And you can collaborate with us as MGCY and to make sure that we hold many more sessions that are going to disseminate the information we have. So that's the third point. And the fourth would be that we always have a youth blast before any major process. So again, we will have another youth blast that will comprise, briefings and trainings of the youth and youth coming together to give their final input and key messages that will be presented in Summit of the Future. So like those are just some of the engagements that I know we as MGCY and within the UN entity can engage in, but much more since the first revision came out yesterday on 14th May, and it has now started being circulation started today on 15th May. We have a lot of consultations that have been arranged for major groups and other stakeholders to come in, and for also the readings that will happen. And so if you're not in New York and you cannot make it in person, because we always have the town halls where people can also engage physically, whether or not you hold those, the EAT positions. But at the same time, we have the UN Web TV. So if you can engage with it and look at the program, you will find that there will be a lot of readings that will take place on the pact. Right now, the pact only has the 5 chapters. It removed the shuffle, the first part, like the summary part that was the beginning. That will be discussed later. But at the moment, there will be more than 6 readings that will be streamlined on the UN Web TV that will allow you to engage with the pact section by section, but also hear from member states what the member states are doing, because as civil society conference, we will need to lobby through member states in order to have our language or our key recommendations feature into the pact. And so following the UNTV would be very vital in making sure that you as an individual or an organization interact and know more and familiarize yourself with the pact document.
Of time, I have a few highlights from what you say, because that's a lot and very important. But Ines had another engagement. I'll allow her to speak. And if possible, other than the summit of the future, if you can speak about 2100, because that is similar to what Terry had said about 2063, but now with a global perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I will rely on what Terry said about what she's doing. I think that's what happens with Summit of the Future. Will don't do anything. Like governments will always meet, they will always connect. But whatever happens with the Summit of the Future is what she's doing, is what I'm doing, is what you all are doing. So that's what I want you to take away. How do you want your engagement to be in this process? Whether you're in New York or not, how do you want to tangibilize future generations in your communities? The way that we're doing it at the foundation is through multiple facets. First, we're having intergenerational town halls in 20 countries around the world, including Kenya. The first one starting in Australia on the 20th of this month, where we're going to bring together civil society, academics, members of the government to discuss how does this agenda adapt to our reality. Not a global pact that, okay, it's just a paper, but how do we make sure that our demands, that our actions are also included. So if you want to get involved with that, I'm sure Christine can share my contact, and you can join one of those consultations directly in Kenya. The second is our engine room. Our engine room, which Christine was part of last year, this year has 5 different groups working on the 5 Ps of the UN. So people, planet, prosperity, partnerships, and peace. And through that, in this month, we're exploring what is it that we want to tackle as a global group in these issues. So in my case, for instance, in partnerships, it's a lot to what we discussed earlier about global financial architecture. How can we make sure that countries who are currently investing 5 times more in their debt than on the SDGs are included when we talk about future generations? This means reform on financial architecture. This means that we need to think better about where our money is going and also dismantle the colonial architecture that exists today. So that's in my group, but then in the people group, they'll be working on gender and on education. In the peace group, they're talking about what do we do with the conflicts today and how do we prevent conflicts? Because often, of course, there are many conflicts today that we need to talk about, but how do we get it to a point where those conflicts don't exist? Many times that's the role of the UN. So again, if you want to be involved in that, right now we're exploring, and then next month we'll be defining, and after that we'll be taking action and implementing different campaigns and launching different policy papers on that. The third on our case is financing. So the UN Foundation works with the Unlock the Future Coalition, which is a coalition of youth-led and youth-focused organizations, including the Scouts, Plan International, Restless Development, and so on. And they've all come together to say, okay, we need to work together to see how we can better finance young people. So in September, we're going to be soft launching a funders collective, which we still don't know what it will look like exactly, and we're consulting with many young people to define how do we make sure that we unlock better funding for young people, and we'll launch that in September. And the final element that I mentioned was the storytelling, so launching a big global campaign that any artist or any young storyteller around the world can join and amplify their voice in New York, whether they're there or not, through some kind of digital showing of their art, or allowing some young people to be there to present their art, and how storytelling can reach people's hearts beyond the data that kind of sometimes goes above our head. So those are the 4 tangible things that you can do from wherever you are, and directly from here as well, in regards to the Summit of the Future. And you mentioned 2100, all of this is in our 2100 strategy, making sure that the actions that we make today influence not only today, but 2100, which I started saying half of the world's population will be in Africa in 2100. I do apologize. I was not meant to be sitting here, so I do have another commitment, but thank you so much for taking your time to listen as well.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor, and we will look forward to unpacking that. As she said, if you're interested to engage in those areas, please feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we look forward to having the engagement with you even as you're here in the country and in Karibu Sana. So thank you. And without further ado, I'll go back to Terry so that we can unpack what she said, because I feel there's also a lot of local opportunities there that she said that we have to jump and share this. So she mentioned the second draft, so please have a review of that. There's also individual organizations, as she said, they can take part in not just the local inputs and revisions, but I feel like there's an opportunity on the Indico website, that's the UN registration website. Right now, there's accreditation, because if you realize when you were registering for almost events nowadays that are under the auspices of ECOSOC, which Summit of the Future is, HLPF is also under the auspices of ECOSOC. ECOSOC, as you know, is the Economic Social Council of the UN, which is where all these programs are domiciled. So if you are not in consultative status with them, when you were registering, there was a drop-down option. It asked you whether you're in consultative status with ECOSOC or you are a member of DGC. DGC is the Digital Global Communication for the UN, but also specifically for civil society conference. Now, because ECOSOC is the lead organization, you need to be accredited. Just like think for COP, you need to be UNFCCC accredited. Does that make sense? So right now, until the 31st, for organizations that are legal entities, you can get accredited. But only one person from your entity needs to take up the registration. So that when September comes or in the lead up to September, your organization is accredited to attend or take part in the Summit of the Future. As you know, this will be, not all of you can travel to New York. That's why you need to be accredited, but also for legalities and security purposes, you need to get that accreditation. And this is a once in a life. Summit of the Future is a once in a generation forum. It has never happened. It might not happen again. But this is where you need to take part in this. And as you know, the capacity in New York at that time, given it's going to be in the lead up to UN General Assembly, there's going to be a limit in the number of people. So exactly now, if you, as long as you have, what's it called in Kenya? Legal status, there's a document, there's a name of the document, just register, and then fingers crossed you get accredited, and you can be able to take part physically, and then the issue of funding becomes an issue when we get to cross that bridge. But for now, because it's open, take up that position. So that's on individual local organization. She also mentioned the Youth Blast. We had Youth Blast before and after for MGCY. It was happening at Radisson. Clive was a part of that. This is something now you can take part in. There's the town hall. Town hall is where you learn all these things, but also from a global perspective and get to know what has been happening and how you can take part in it. UN Web is when you follow the proceedings. So for instance, you're not able to attend HLPF. HLPF is high level political forum. So member states, that's where member states sit at the table. So you as an individual might not be able to get into this room until you have an accreditation to have had consultative status with ECOSOC. That's how I'm encouraging you to take up this accreditation that's open now until 31st. Terry, if I leave out anything, I'm just trying to unpack what you said because I feel like there's a lot of opportunities. Join MGCY if you haven't. MGCY will has a slot allotted to it for any UN engagement. And that's a global body, and we have the able focal tertiary as one of them, and they are very accommodating. They also endeavor to facilitate your attendance and you as youth so that it's meaningful. So also now I'll jump to Clive so that Clive give us his input on what is happening going forward.
So moving forward, I believe that multilateral cooperation needs to be really effective because today, while we really depend on multilateralism and international cooperation must enhance a common commitment in ensuring young people are pushed forward in all decision-making platforms. And also it is very veritable to ensure that, the coming challenges that we are experiencing in our planet, young people as the majority, we need to have more voices in them. And majorly, I want to, talking about the future, I want to talk about it in three contexts. One, right now we are facing the different planetary crises. I mentioned earlier that is climate change, plastic pollution, and biodiversity loss. And these three issues, they are already mounted global challenges to the pre-existing, vulnerabilities on our planet, like now poverty, and now climate change is making it to be very, very devastating for developing countries and young people who are often who are often left out. I mean, this becomes very detrimental on their side. And you find that right now in developing countries, you find a lot of money that is supposed to be channeled into youth-led projects. This money is being channeled to pay or financing the global debts that we as developing countries have. So I believe it is very, very veritable to reckon or to amplify our voices on how we need to reimagine the international financial system and young people. Again, we need to have a stronger and steadfast inputs or in multilateral process to ensure we are having more veritable solutions. And we want leaders should also work collectively with young people because majority of young people have expertise. And today I see young people as tangible assets in mitigating global challenges of our time because of the commitment that we are having. And also young people are engaging in more innovative solutions. But you can find in your localities, you do not know whom to reach out to maybe for advancing your project or whom to reach out to in terms of, we're now talking here about Summit of the Future, but you do not know which avenues you need to tap into. So, as Terry had said, we have the Children and Youth Major Group. And for me, I am now part of the other Children and Youth Major Group, which is also to UNEP, which is our Children and Youth constituency to UNEP. And coordinating the Committee of Permanent Representative, we have a direct engagement with member states. And now we as young people can be able to give our inputs and tell them what we want, give proposals in this global agenda that we have. Because and that's why I am stressing that we need to work closely with multilateralism because there's a great window to enhance multilateral commitment and also enhancing more diplomatic ways that young people can see that there's a veritable inputs for them to benefit from. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Claire. I think you went straight into your expertise with policy and junior lobbying. I hope we can all join him in that. But I'd like for you to say, as a member of CYMG, CYMG is different from MGCY. So one is Children and Youth Major Group, the other one is Major Group for Children and Youth. And one is affiliated with UNEP. We were very strong and they were the youth entity that led the Global Youth Environment Assembly, which was a preamble to UNEA. UNEA just happened in end of Jan, Feb. Yes. So my question to you was, which engagements are they or can they take part in the lead up to Summit of the Future from your perspective, so that this multilateralism that you're calling upon, they can be able to take part in? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, that mixed up in it. Yeah, so ways that looking forward to the future, ways that we can engage in it. One of them is that the major groups are open for youth to take part in them, and that is one of the platforms that you can effectively ensure that your voice is being heard in the international process and on the lead up to the Summit of the Future. We also have ad hoc working group on the Summit of the Future for the youths, and we have youths from different continents. We are working on the same issues, but now we are also enhancing the deliberations on the lead up to the Summit of the Future. And now, being part of these major groups, it is also very easier to organize bilaterals with member states, and saying maybe giving input as young people saying we want maybe this section to be changed. And right now, of course, we cannot have a direct changing in that, but unless now we raise these issues with maybe with member states, because for them that they now who are now in a position to provide the inputs and suggest what can be changed. Another thing is taking part in these discussions and moving forward, there's also an ongoing work in preparing for Future Generations Summit in Kenya, and we'll feature predominantly on issues around the Summit of the Future and how young people can take part. But again, when you check on the agendas in the Summit of the Future, you find that these are cross-cutting issues that have already been reckoned into other forums, and they are not new ideas, but for me, I view them as a time for us to take stock as young people and now propose. Because, for instance, sometimes you can meet somebody who's telling you, I want to be engaged as a young people, as a young person. I want to have more voice, but in what capacity do you want to be engaged in the process? So I think it is very, very also important to emphasize on that. And the major groups, I think Terry can talk about the major group that she is part of, and also the other major group that I am part of, because these are the only direct avenues that we can have ways to, present these inputs that we want to be changed, looking forward to the future.
Great. So look out for the Future Generation Summit. He's also encouraged you to join a professional entity. If you haven't already, you are really missing out because the UN doesn't know you as an individual. So therefore, you need to stand on the shoulder of these professional entities and associations and sister constituencies for you to now get accreditation or a seat in the room. Another thing he's encouraged is for you to take part in the reviews and the sessions that are going on. Terry taught me this a long time ago. We also served with TTV on the Global Youth Task Force for Food Systems under FAO. And she told me anytime you see a document that's coming to you that's a draft of something, even if it's a typo, make sure your name shows up there. So you go to the comments. Everyone is familiar with what a Google Doc is. So you go to the comments. Sometimes you don't have edit access, but you have access to write a comment. So make sure your name reads there. Don't use your anonymous email. It will read, Christine Karanja suggested, a full stop, suggested that instead of saying in general youth, it's be specific to Global South, that it be specific to, you get what I'm saying? So leave a footprint somewhere so that even as they are considering once you apply, because they're going to shortlist people, they will remember during a certain report, this was written down. And once they review these documents, these comments are part of the report. So that's how you get selected for some of these things. Before Ines left, she brought up the 2100. 2100 also has a handbook. Look out for that handbook. You just need to look up Future Generations under UNF. That's United Nations Foundation. United Nations Foundation is also a part of the UN Civil Society, and we had a few of their members in our planning committee. So below that is now to discuss direct engagement with member states. You rarely will you have direct engagement with member states. So these are the people who are going to be in the room making the decision. So until you are under such an entity or be added to a delegation, you will not be able to engage with member states. And therefore your cries, your wounds will fall on their ears. Anyone from the online audience feeling like giving input? I can hear a few squeaks here and there. I hope we're not glossing over anyone. We have
Christine, I will come in.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I want to first say, when I mention MGCY, it is the umbrella body of all the constituencies. The one that I serve in is the DRR working group, and the one Clive Donnelly is in is the CYMG. So these, what he's in and what I am in are just, let's say, subcommittees. The overall cover of all these constituencies is what I'm calling MGCY. And so through subscribing to MGCY, you are subscribing to getting information for all related constituencies. But at the same time, when you go to the MGCY website that I've already shared on the chat, you are able to register for specific constituencies. Now, if you are interested in the environment, then you will join the CYMG, which is where Clive is in. If you're interested in disaster risk reduction, then you will join the DRR working group, which is also called the Sendai Children and Youth, which I'm a part of. If you're interested in climate issues, then you will join YUNGO. So, like YUNGO, SYMG, DRR working group, all of these are under the MGCY. So, like in other words, MGCY is our mother. And then we have all the children as the constituencies. Yeah, I felt that was important to clarify. And also for us to know that apart from the things that I've mentioned, the environment, climate, DRR, we have other working groups, which we also call constituencies, that work across the SDGs. And so we are organized as MGCY at a global level, at the regional level, at, like depending on what you're looking for, we have it. If you're looking at, can I get a working group that focuses on issues from Africa? We have that. And at the same time, we also organize using issues or topics where if you want to know what SDG2 is doing and what processes are ongoing at the UN level, then you will join the SDG2 working group, which is actually where you and I first met on the food systems. And so, like, there are different ways to engage in NGCY, but I just needed to clarify that NGCY is the umbrella body that carries over 30 plus constituencies that focus on individual SDGs and also other important matters that are discussed or deliberated upon within the UN system. Yeah, thank you.
Now, without further ado, we'll go into the concluding questions in terms of what are the challenges. And before I let you go, Terry, maybe just continue and say what are the challenges that youth, the young people are facing in participating in sustainable development processes. And so far, this has felt one way. So I'll start working around the room. And if I start working back and we haven't seen hands in the room, I'll pinpoint people. Especially people who took part in the past dialogue weren't able to take part. I know. Because now you can say what that felt like for us who are here. And yeah, Terry, please share what your challenges are, and then we'll have Clive as I go back through the room.
Yeah, I also am seeing we have 18 members online, we included, and wonder if we here online can share our challenges. Because at the moment, the question is just asking us to discuss the challenges of youth engagement, whether it's at the national level or at the regional or global level. So I feel like this is the best opportunity for all of us to speak. Most of the times, I'm always very wary to end up doing monologues when I attend a session. And that's why when we started, I said I was also happy to be here as a participant. And that meant that I am willing to listen and learn from you. And this is the opportune moment where I can learn from all of you what the challenges of youth engagement are, whether they are related to Summit of the Future or they just ended the CSO conference, or your general way, like as a youth, what challenges do you face?
Participants who will give their inputs and highlight them. And then we'll have Clive share as we wait on that. What are the challenges that the youth are facing? And also now the audience, Johnson has saved me and offered to pass the mic around. Yes.
Okay, I'll just share two pointers. One, I want to highlight that the challenges that the youth face, maybe you find that you're a youth NGO and you present your idea somewhere or to a government office, and later on you just find your idea has been launched somewhere without your consent. So I think this is one of the challenges, and there is need to have a legally binding way to enhance to ensure that young people are protected and their ideas are not stolen. Another challenge of I see is there's lack of funding for young people to enhance their engagement in various processes and even implementation of projects. And so through my I won't say my government, but through the Swiss agency, we've been working more to ensure that we are mainstreaming ways that young people have there are innovative solutions being funded or being helped to young people being helped in implementation. And lastly, I think capacity building is very, very critical to ensure young people are understanding ways on how they can tackle these challenges. For instance, you find somebody wants to do a proposal and they do not know how to do it, and now this jeopardizes their process and does not really ensure their maximum involvement in various processes. So there are many, but just highlighted a few. But I believe you can also highlight more that you face in your own organization.
Great. We have a hand in the room, and maybe we'll come back to you to see what other solutions you're coming in from these challenges you've given. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lena Martin. I'm a lawyer and I'm also champion for SDG 13. I have two, one is a question, the other one is a recommendation, and especially on what the young people are facing. The first question is, I've heard all about all the goals that have been set, the summit of the future, the recommendations, and I've also read the draft on the summit of the future. And all those are very, very good things that are going to help us as a people to be able to implement the SDGs and make the world a better place. But I've had little about the accountability of the same because when my president, together with the rest of the people in Kenya who have been living here, to go to New York, they will be using my taxes, and approximately more than, I'm sure, than 100 million will be used in that. And I expect that at the end of it, there's, apart from ratification and the signing, that there will be accountability that in the next 30 years, if I don't see the same has been implemented, I can come and say, why hasn't this been implemented? At the moment, we have seen a point whereby we have reached the peak problems, like for instance, climate change. We have had floods. If this was tackled long ago when these things were being spoken about, then this could be different. We would not have all those people dying. If the issue of security has been taken care of by people who are enablers of violence are brought to accountability, we not have people in Gaza dying, And so I don't know about what accountability mechanisms are being put in place to ensure that it's not just ratified and signed, but it's also implemented. That is my question. Secondly, on what the young people are facing. Today, just thinking, every day I come from Embakasi, and we are almost thousands of us coming from Embakasi to come to Nairobi for employment. It's because most of the services are in Nairobi. We really have services that are good in Ushago. I remember when I was in the University of Nairobi, when I was doing my degree, we would joke ourselves saying that shule ikifungwa mimi sina place ya kwenda except to Ushago. It's only school that has brought me here, and this shows the way we don't have services that are good. And if we are to implement SDGs, the best way to implement SDGs is to decentralize all these. A young person can be innovative, but I feel like it would be better for them if they had a space where they can be innovative. For instance, if someone is in Turkana, we have the power. We have very good raw materials, but those raw materials are brought to Nairobi to come and be manufactured. So they are mainly being used in Nairobi. So one of the things that hinders us as the young people is the lack of the environment. We cannot all be coming to Nairobi. Today I was just looking. Our parents, like my parents, are the last people to come from Ishago. So if we are the last, like Gen Z, as Gen Z, we have been brought up in town. So we'll give back in town. This town will be crowded. Then now what will happen? Because we don't have good services. There's no one wants to go and work in Ushago. See, because all the services are in Nairobi. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else in the room? Yes. Joseph,
It's okay. Wait, she.
back there. And if we have any takers in the room for the questions?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much, and nice conversation. I've been in and out listening to us speaking. Hi, Terry. This is Olela Tony. Uh, I am a gender expert and research and advocate. I do big course for SDG. I'm a gender advocacy in 5.3. I'm also the regional coordinator for Tech Kenya and just joined the steering committee for some years back. So I just have a question, also just a comment. We've been talking about, I've had Clive talking about, and the other mind is talking about, last week young people had a comment to talk to people in the UN, which is all, I know some of you UN is home. And they were raising questions, asking what, how. But I think it's high time we shift the conversation to how these questions can be addressed. And when and where can these young people be engaged? Because when I hear my barrister lawyer talking about an environment, I'm also concerned about the environment itself. I mean, she talks about using some taxi in New York. Sorry, I'm a victim. I don't know, will we walk, but it's okay. We'll manage it. But I think it's high time for us to address challenges for young people. Because we talk about capacity building young people. This has been done by the way. This has been done. But the question is how are we doing this? How do we unlock, how do we unlock this information such that young people can really understand them? Because we talk about policies, talk about the documents that have been drafted, being narrowed to 19. Trust me, most of them won't read this document. We're in an era, or not, we talk about social behavior among young people. Gen Z, our is the question is scary. The question is, how do we track this information? It's so interesting for these young people to understand that reading abracadabra as a grammar in a document. You see, so my question is, how can we center the young people issues and address them effectively? I mean, how can we human center the young people's issues to address them such that we involve them? Because we've been talking, we've been activists, we've been advocates, but now we're losing it somewhere. And then, do we have the team, Terry, Clive, and the team? Do we have a module that helps young people to transition to the next level? Because we have groups, we have so many groups by the way. Actually, in my WhatsApp, I was just typing MC, the thing, the one that was saying, and I found myself there by the way. I mean, that global group. These groups are so many. But what is the transitional model for these young people? Ama nukali kwa group. Na kwa sababu mimi nakuanga chama specific forum. Yeah? What if we have a court, like let's say court one, after this to scare Arnold amepata kazi mahali, na amepata kazi mahali. So what is that model? How can you get that model? Okay? So once again, how can you human center these issues that young people are addressing every day to ensure that we address them effectively and come up with a sustainable solution even before Agenda 63? Thank you.
Working.
Yeah. I think we can take first questions. Firstly, is there input online? Are there any? The back?
Yes, Terry.
Yes, Terry?
Peter Bulimo has raised his hand online. Please unmute yourself, Peter. Technical assistance needed.
Yeah. Needed.
Peter Bulimo, you can speak.
Engagement. And I have 2 points. The first will be mostly around knowledge, or rather knowledge in terms of the SDGs. You find there is, well, the SDGs are out there. I mean, there are a lot of things out there, but still, a lot of the youth have no information about the SDGs. We work mostly in informal settlements. I work with WAZI, it's a community-based organization in Waraka. And ever we are, over the holidays, we are having mentorship sessions in which we have a session on SDGs. We are working with teens, adolescents, and youth. And every time we just bring up anything about the SDGs, they still have no idea what you're talking about. Not only at that level, we're also working at the university level. We equally have a chapter at Kenyatta University, and same to the Kenyatta University chapter, unless your course dictates that you study about the SDGs, it's highly unlikely that you know about the SDGs or generally how they impact you. And secondly, it's also about the mode of disseminating information around the SDGs. As my colleague here said, these documents, they're so big. It's already hard enough of young people we have to study, academics to chosha. Now you have to bring us back to studying, documents, long documents with words that we cannot understand. There's also that aspect of it. So we need the information around it disseminated in a way that we young people can also be interested to participate and also to want to learn more about that. The second is reinvesting, as Clive has said. What are the ways in which, as young people, we can access finance? And not only that, we know there is money for young people and their youth projects. Every other month, every other year, there's a youth vehicle. But how can we, as youth, young people, without any resources, like in terms of, we have a CBO, we need funding, but we are told we have to have existed maybe 2-3 years prior. 2-3 years prior, we were still in school. We didn't have any money at the time. Probably this was just an idea, and now it's when we're implementing it. And we need resources to back us. We don't have resources as well. And at the same time, the part of patenting, how can we patent our ideas, or rather, how can we protect ourselves as young people? Whatever we put out there, we can be able to associate ourselves with it. And as youth, whatever you're putting out there is new. It's relatively new. Things have not yet been explained. They have not yet been done before. And once you're putting it out there, like has said, you find other people have implemented your project and you don't have the finances to go for a legal battle to argue about your project and whatnot. So you end up, giving up and just quitting that space and all in all. Thank you.
And then perhaps intentional. I mean, let me say, I'm very brother, and when you have to maybe seek for a clarification and also do a contribution in terms of the policy sector, because I'm also doing something on the same. And looking at, let's say, the Pact for the Future, and now that you have a document that is centered on science, technology, and innovation, and that is more of a global framework. But now, when we come to our situation as Kenya and Africa, we also have a number of documents that are related to the same, which again, if you look at the indicators, the targets, they are not really aligning to the global framework that is there. For instance, if you look at the Agenda 2063, there was already a document on science, technology, and innovation that was on the center stage from 2014 to 2024 for the first 10 years. But again, if you look at the implementation structure, we really did not have a lot of achievements in the same. But now, we as Africans, as Kenyans, we are still championing for the path of the future. Well, 10 years after our own Agenda 2063 was pushed, we still do not have results. So how can we be able to integrate the national, regional, and global policies so that they address the same challenges, which I think will come in with the question of accountability, like after we have done these things and now we have clarified them with documents, how can we ensure that these things are working? And then secondly, I think I'll also mention something about the patenting and the IP because I'm also part of the innovation space currently, and we were doing documents just checking on the innovation index of Kenya and looking at also in it as Africa. And this is a very great challenge that is coming because of the technicalities that come with it, because of, let's say, the access to information. And we came to realize that, there are a lot of institutions that are dealing with intellectual property at the moment, patenting and everything. But again, the question still comes into streamlining of these institutions because, for instance, in Kenya, if you look at the bodies that are dealing with, let's say, the SDGs, the environment, the science, technology, and innovation, you'll find there's a wing that is in the National Treasury, State Department of Planning, dealing with the same. Under the State Department of Youth, we also have the Kenya Innovation Agency still doing the same things. When you go to the Ministry of Environment, you still have things to do with science, technology, and innovation. So the real question now comes in with how do we harmonize these platforms without actually having more of a communication of the same. And I think if we can be able as youth, I think still goes to what Tony mentioned in terms of what you can be able to do at a personal level. I think we can be able to come up with a suggestion because right now we're implementing the National Climate Change Action Plan, and that is part of the agenda that is there. So if there's a way we can be able to push, not just for the global strategies that you can do, but now on the national strategy, what you can be able to at least implement on our own, I think it's going to be possible. Yeah, thank you.
Feel like my question has already been covered, but I'll just repeat it. My question was majorly on how can we, as young people, ensure that we're not just having a global conversation. See, when we speak about the Sustainable Development Goals, that's from a global perspective because that was a product of the UN back in 2012, right? So how can we ensure that it's not just a global conversation, but we are also taking into factor what is happening in our nation and what is happening in our region. Like what my brother just shared, we are joining discussions at the UN as member states, that in Kenya, and we are going to implement things that had already been shared in the Agenda 2063, which is the agenda for the African Union, but that has not been achieved. So then how can we achieve what we have failed to achieve at a regional level, at a global level? I don't know if you're getting my question. Yes, so that's the question.
Any more questions there before we go to Gulipo? Online?
So much. I think I'll take it from the global conversation that Masisa is talking about, the other side. My name is Isaac, and I think Clive has clearly summarized the challenges. It is, of course, a beautiful thing because most of us have been able to come up with a number of activities at local levels, at village levels, even at global level, but of course, there are several successes. Now, we're talking about challenges. It is obvious the challenge that has been highlighted about financing, about the fear of somebody stealing an idea that talks about content. Now, I've been a little bit worried about uh, uh, taking this conversation again back to our villages, because we're talking about uh, global conversation. We assume what is happening at the very root of where we began. My sister, the lawyer, talked about people filling our towns. Forget about even Nairobi. Yesterday I was in a certain meeting where we were supposed to be organizing some scholarship to go somewhere outside the country. And people were so many in that hall, so like everybody wants to leave the country. The other day there was some game somewhere, I think in Qatar, and you look at the stadium, it is so full. So everybody was asking, "Maliziwetu wote wanahama wanaenda Majuu," you see. So I've been thinking about that rural boy in our community at the village who's wondering how to come up with an idea promoting this sustainable development goals, and they're not actually able to come up with them because of the structure where they are, the systems, and that they lack the motivation. So my concern was, how do we build that stamina at that level? Then number two, how do we ensure their sustainability? I think that's where Fred comes in. We're looking up the ideas and seeing how workable they can be and putting it up front. So my concern was, we see how we can take back this conversion at village level, and as much as we're staying in town, focus on those our brothers and sisters who are at the community level and are wondering how they can come up with the top. Thank you.
Peter, will you are able to unmute? Before we proceed, is Peter Bloom able to unmute? And then we can start taking the questions. Replication of questions, so that means the areas of concern are common, and if we have common problems, I think we can have common solutions. We just need to change our perspective. I told you the one thing I learned, okay, several things from the conference, but one is how privileged we are. Not that we can attend, but also the fact that Kenya being a democracy means that as civil society, and if you listen to the speeches by the co-chairs and the various dignitaries that were there, no one faulted picketing. Picketing is where you advocate for your rights. You come together because there's power in numbers. Mithika Mwendo kept saying Ubuntu. Ubuntu is I am because we are. So I am in trouble because you're in trouble. And therefore, if I find a solution, we can all find a solution together. I'm glad to see certain faces who have a standing in community, and even if they have challenges. So the Seronei who's here was former President QS, so that's the Kenya University Environment something. I see Tony Olela there, he's just joined State Amnesty or AMREF, served in so many entities. We have Fred Tunya. So if we can use the little we have, I think and then use strategies so that we're not just picketing for weathering, we're not doing mandamano. We apply the knowledge that our legal minds can tell us. We don't have to wait on Okia or Tata. We can work together and find change and keep government accountable. The house of this can be discussed. This will not be the final engagement, but there's also the fact that Tony raised, how do you transition? So once you've been advocating, you're around 20 something, there's others in their later 20s, others early 30s. The UN intends to also revise the age of youth, because if we are all going to be 50% of us youth, when you're talking about the future at that time, it won't be the 25-year-olds today. It has to be the 17-year-old discussing their future. So with that, we need to create a pipeline for you to transition. And that's why I think I would believe Fred Tunya from Yali would be an apt person to tell us how, whatever little you're doing as a CBO, even though you're 1 year old, there's something you can do probably with Yali. In the meantime, on top of maybe working together with or standing on the shoulders of someone such as Yali or affiliate organizations to get funding and grant. And let me not go further into it, but allow Fred to get into how we can transition Is Peter Dolumia ready to speak or did they give up? Because I believe whatever little action you're doing here is what when you apply it to these various engagements, whether it's to travel
you hear me
abroad,
now?
and even if you don't travel, it's good, you get exposure. Then you come back home, you you bring foreign, what do they call it? Ruto is targeting that. You bring in more money, but you're not forgetting where you're coming from in that sense. So leverage this organization. Oh, Peter is ready to speak. Let me allow him to speak.
Thank you very much, and apologies for the technical glitch. I'll just take up from where you have left. And perhaps the first thing I'd want to mention is I think one of the biggest challenge of the young people is a design, it's a systems design challenge. And I think as we talk about reforming the global financial architecture, we also need to think about reforming the global multilateral architecture to ensure that inclusivity of young people is very much intentional. And I'd just take an example of what you've mentioned about the age of young people. You know, the UN defines the age of a young people as 30 and below. And if I give you an example of the organization I work with, the person who founded the organization founded it at 31. At 21 rather, by the time they're 24 years of age, they have already set up a global organization and they have resigned from that role. Come back to the country, I get my first job, and I know like I'm among the very few lucky and privileged, but at the age of 27. By the time I get to even 30, I haven't even understood how the system works. So if you look at it, the system as is currently is very colonial and it's very racist. It only factored like the global north perspectives. And so when young people from the global south come in and try to even contribute to engage with the system, it becomes very much difficult. So I think Terry will bear me witness that in New York during that the youth consultation at the Youth Blast, my concern was also about looking at the youth engagement mechanism with the UN. So can we have a youth engagement strategy that encompasses and it is intentional about having young people involved in a very intentional and meaningful manner that is not tokenistic, or that is not just co-opting young people, you know, tokenistic in a way that, for example, if we have a global process, we want to create a room for young people, but you look at the contributions that we are providing. At the Africa Climate Summit, we had the ICA declaration. I've seen we have the COIS declaration. I also seen at the UNEA, we had the youth declaration. But I usually try to ask myself, like, where do these declarations go beyond like being released at these summits? Can we follow up on this declaration the next year and say, for example, these are some of the inputs from the thorough youth consultations that happened. These are some of the inputs that young people provided. And out of these, 1, 2, or 3 have been incorporated into the final declaration and are transitioning now to action and being put into policy implementation, budget designs, and things like that. I think we have not been able to reach at that level. So my concern is let us try and have an engagement strategy that will be intentional about having young people so that we just seen but not heard, invited but not prioritized. And then another issue that I wanted to talk about was about funding. I think it goes without saying that we really struggle when it comes to funding. I lead a global youth project, and in this project, we're trying to unlock finances for young people. But even beyond unlocking finances for young people, we are trying to ensure that the finances reach the young people that most deserve. But then, if you come back to the general public, the way the funding has been arranged, first of all, the accessibility to this funding is very much complex. Number two, you want to do, for example, a restoration or a climate project. These are very long-term projects before you realize results, but you're given support to do projects that are 3 months or 6 months. in essence, these are not projects that will yield long-term benefits. That's why you see many young people are only involved in things like planting trees, things that you do one time, and then you go and report like your indicators or outcomes are things like the number of trees that have been planted. It looks good on paper, but it doesn't really have a significant long-term impact. So again, while we are talking about how to support young people, can we look at how the funding arrangements for young people are organized? I really like Kenya's FLOCA design, the way it has been put, but can also other funders within the space also borrow around that? So I think for now, that will be my submission on the same.
Questions? And for now, I'll have Fred.
Yeah, thank you so much. I won't take much of your time again. I'll respond to two main questions. One is on how do we progress as young people, even when we form those organizations, or even if we are part of those bodies that we feel coming out strongly to make important progress in the specific area of work. And the other question I'll respond to is on the ratification, the UN documents and all that align to the same question. First and foremost, I think it's very important. The gentleman who just spoke online virtually highlighted that they really struggle with getting funding. And it is true that it is not easy to have a funding opportunity for your project or as a young person for your initiative. So what happens? Then each and every day you are encouraged to look for formations, organizations, associations, legal entities that you can join and be part of. And it is so easy for you to access funding if you're part of an organization or if you're part of a legal entity. Because in most cases, those people who've got lots of money and they want to give their money through projects, maybe in the global south or even in the developed world, they will say, for you to access this funding, perhaps you must be part of or a member of a given entity or institution. So in your everyday work or exploration, find a place to belong to. So, find a place to belong to. And I'm not here to preach the Yali gospel, but I'm here to tell you that for an institution like Yali, if you join Yali today, you have an opportunity to access up to 10,000, not up to 10,000, a minimum of 10,000, but a maximum of up to 50,000 funding for your project that you're working on or you're championing. So if this gentleman who just spoke here talked of a climate-related initiative, yes, 50,000 US. Thanks, Simon. And Simon, sitting at the back, is working on or around the art. Simon, do you want to say what you do? Maybe real quick. Simon is an actor. Maybe you can raise your hand. He's a director, he's a film producer, but whatever he does, Sana is the name of their production. They are able to access funding. Even today, they are able to access funding and they have access funding that will enable them as actors. So sometimes if you hear people complaining or acting has no money or we can't access funding, where do you belong? Are you a solo actor? So you must belong somewhere to access this funding opportunity. So in short, I'm saying that young people, we must start to realize what we call mindset change or mindset shift. Because long are gone days when we keep complaining that the voice of young people must be at the table, or us must be at, or we must be at the center of decision making. But every single day, we also see young people getting opportunities to sit at the decision making table. The question should be, how enough do we press our colleagues, our fellow youth, who are already at the decision making table? True or false? Yes. How are we pressing them to realize everything that we need? Because again, like initial speaker said, Africa alone, young people in today's standard newspaper, there was an article about what the next African Union chairperson can do to young people in Africa who are making up to 70% of the population. So then the question again is, of all those young people who already occupy those positions, what are they doing to help young people to grow with them alongside, that journey path? So that is and I'm not shifting away from the initial question that if we form these organizations, where do we end up? How are young people always being considered for opportunities? Even this forum here is an opportunity for all of us to raise our voices. After this session, go to your social media platform and showcase where you participated, what you participated in doing. That way, you're making huge and tremendous change to being considered for such sessions or conferences or opportunities that she mentioned earlier on. And finally, it's on this document that you hear, we have ratified documents and all this. So I will start by talking of the 1951 refugee ratification document and the 1967 protocol, which now makes the basis of the work of UNHCR. I don't want to make it very complicated to everyone in the room, but I only want to say that most documents that are signed by member states as a UN, then goes to ratification. Then after ratification, they go to approvals or accession or those other processes. It is important for you to note that the policies or the agenda documents or the outcomes of these summits that even as young people we host locally. Like my brother said in his speech here, that it is upon you as the organizers of such a forum to follow up on such documents or outcomes to make sure that you collaborate or work with policy makers, maybe parliamentarians, or maybe senators, or maybe people who sit at another level of policy making to just make sure that those outcomes of your conferences or those documents can now then be signed and you can follow up at that level to make sure that those documents get to another level. Not that a forum ends today, you present an outcome of this conference, and then what? No one will come and ask you about that document if you don't pursue, or you don't push, or you don't explore additional, frameworks, all levels to which such documents can be implemented or made or changed or completely converted to working policies. So again, ladies and gentlemen, as young people, we have to really, adopt or accept the mindset change or shift and try to reimagine things differently. And with a lot of discipline, push our agenda, push our agenda, and push our agenda. I think that will mark the end of my response to thanks.
With that, because many of the questions have been somewhat covered, Simon, Atsana, I would love to see you maybe highlight what you're saying. But now, with regards to unpack what Bulina has said, or rather Fred Jr., is that it's your duty and your mandate to take up these declarations. There's reports that are going to come out. Now follow up with your local lawmakers, whether that's lobbying and strategy with that, and have a mindset change. Make sure that you have an online narrative that shows your footprint for the little things you're doing in that community, whether it's teaching students who are high schoolers about SDGs, it's cleanups, it's capacity building. Make sure you have an online narrative that tells this so that when nowadays physical offices with post-COVID era are somewhat being phased out. So even headhunters, human resource officers have been narrowed down. So headhunters will find you on LinkedIn because of the narrative you've created there. And then you'll be able to transition from your CBO to now maybe a multinational, even as you continue with the work you're doing locally. The last one is mindset change. He's already said innovative financing, a method he's mentioned is attaching yourself to a legal entity that is professional and renowned as Yali. I can tell you for a fact, Rutere and I know someone who went from Yali to multiple funding opportunities from Yali. And not to mention that they were a refugee. So imagine what more you can do as a local person, because this refugee has a lot of traumas to deal with. And they are putting themselves in that position where now they are fundable by taking up yearly. And the process, sometimes they do trainings on applications during the intakes, look out for those yearly applications. Arnold is also an alumni, you can speak on that, and also to speak on what SDG knowledge trickle down at the village can be done for that person who's saying high schoolers don't know what SDG are. For campus students who don't know what SDG is, I am a Millennium Fellow, a two-time Millennium Fellow and Campus Director at University of Nairobi, and a Millennium Fellowship. It's a United Mission Academic Impact Partnership Initiative. So you see that stamp of approval is what opens doors for me. Not necessarily my name or my gender or how I speak. Other than that, it's also having that to stand on it, because they gave me how to implement a project. I didn't know I was already learning that at school, but the fact that MCN is globally recognized and it works with undergraduates, I'll allow Arnold to speak on local knowledge for SDGs or breaking that down. The other one is policy knowledge. Serene had said, and Tony, in terms of this jargon and that you don't want to read back. It's your duty if you're a content creator or even just a meme maker, whatever you are, break down this policy into something that's understandable, because you understand it, you're better off than someone else. So turn it into a policy brief, an article, a meme, something that's relatable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's clap for her. So I'd like us to stand up and do small exercise. And we prepare to wind up because we know that our time, our promised time to end is here. So I want us to do some and then we conclude. So today, as I say, we will try to read together. So we're going to sing. I have a ball, I have a ball, I have a ball. I take the ball. I take the ball. Here. I take the ball. I take the ball. I take the ball. I take it. Help me. I take I put it here. I put it. I prefer, I prefer. Thank you so much. Let's take a break. It's been an interesting conversation today, and I thank you all for inventing the time to be part and parcel of this very important process that is taking place throughout this year. And my colleagues have highlighted many, many important things that you need to pay attention to. And in case you may have missed anything, you are always free to reach out to us and or connect to our colleagues personally or on LinkedIn and be able to plug in as much as you can. So there was that question about SDGs and being able to reach people where they are, especially in the I use my SDGs series to try and reach young people where they are in different places. In the past, we've collaborated with other organizations to host similar dialogues in places like Machakos with our great colleague here and the organization that they run on the environment. We've also collaborated with like-minded organizations in Mongolia, in Taita Taveta, to host SDGs dialogues and speak to people in their communities on SDGs, even in Swahili. So yes, we are making some efforts, but I know you can also be able to make some efforts. And other stakeholders who are happy and willing to work with us can also be able to plug in and partner and support where possible. So I don't want to take a lot of time. I would like to read these comments from one of our colleagues online. Could you move could you move the bar to the left a bit so that I can be able to see? If you can't, it's okay. Let me. We also have a very beneficial document for the youth called the AU Protocol on Social Protection and Social Security, which the AST is advocating for its signing and ratification. As a youth who has taken time to read the document, I find the document is very beneficial to vulnerable groups, especially the youth, since it covers on matters of social insurance, unemployment, and underemployment, education, social protection services. So that is by Mali from FDSP. Thank you so much, Mali, for that. Okay. Peter Blimmer also said, is this session recorded? Yes, this session has been recorded and will be uploaded to the Champions for SDGs YouTube page and can be able to be followed through later on. And also we've similar conversations that we've shared either on our Facebook page or on our YouTube page, so you can always follow through. Now, I've sent you an email right now. I'm not sure whether you've received it. The photos will be uploaded immediately when we complete the session. So I'd like to hold on. But there's a link that I would like you to click on. That is the feedback form for the session that we are having today. So I'd like you to take a moment to click on that link just now. Yes. For online participants, we projected the QR code that you can scan, but I know that we've sent the link to all people who registered for this session. So even our online participants should be able to access that email and respond to that survey. I want us to answer the first question. We need to respond to the whole survey, but I'll project the first question so that we can see how you feel about this dialogue that we're having today. Is there anyone who would like assistance in accessing the form? If you need assistance, you can scan this QR code that is on the screen right now. Feel free to come close and scan if you are not able to scan it from where you are. Yes. If you do not have access to internet, there is internet at this venue. So the password is MUadmin 2021 yes. If it's not working for you, then you can respond to the survey after this. But it would be great to have a few of you respond to this. So as we do that, I would like to thank our moderator for the day. She has done a good job, hasn't she? Let's clap for her. Thank you, Chairman. And also to our speakers for the day for sharing with us the wisdom and taking out the time to be here throughout. And especially Terry for staying online all the while and engaging with us all through behalf of the UN Major Group for Children and Youth. Terry, we recognize your efforts and we thank you so much for that effort. And also to all our online participants who have stayed put. For example, I saw Abraham Machuki join very early and he has been there throughout. And all those that we have, Damaris, Emma Ochieng, Eunice, Eve Buchichi, Gladys Njeri, Hamza, Hilary Njeru, Kelvin Ostori, Irugo Atuti, Laurin Ododa, Marlin, Miss Ndano, Nancy Washira, Peter Bulimo, Rebecca Mutitu, Steve Tonui, Victor Mudoka. We see you and we appreciate you and thank you for taking the time to engage actively on this conversation. So, the next email is a hashtag that you can use to share your thoughts on this conversation online. When you get to share, you can remember to use that hashtag so that we can follow through and know that you are part of this conversation, and other colleagues who have also been part of this conversation can also follow through. So have we been able to fill in this short survey? It only takes less than a minute. So Muindi, if you can project that slide that has question one, I'd like to see some of the responses that we have for question one. It's on the yeah. Okay. So the question was, write down one word that describes how the Mayutha SDGs dialogue part 2 has been for you today. And someone says it has been informative, it has been educative, it has been great, it has been awesome, enlightening, eye-opening, insightful, excellent. So the 12 of us have already been able to say something about it. I encourage us to continue doing that. I also like to announce that after we finish from here, we will have a cup of tea. We'll have a cup of tea so that we can reward ourselves for the effort that we have put to engage in this conversation today. But as we wait to do that, I'd like to ask whether the time was sufficient to cover this topic. I asked this question last time, but I also like to know whether do you think 2.5 hours were enough for us to cover this topic well, and what do you suggest? Let's hear from 3 people, then and then we get back.
Hello everyone. I'm Irene Nene. I'm part of the reality team. And I think there can never be enough time to completely cover all that is required. But as far as this session was concerned, I think I can say we have learned quite a lot. And I believe that we have all taken something that we can work on again after this. Yeah, and I hope to see, I'm actually glad that some of the faces that were there in the part one. So I'm hoping that we keep doing this more and more. So it's not about the time that we spend here, but about the consistency. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Who else would like to comment on that from here? Let me volunteer someone. You tell us your name and where you're from and whether you think this has been covered sufficiently.
Good evening. My name is Vivian. I'm the project coordinator for Wazi Foundation. This is my first session. I don't think I was part of, I've been part of such discussions previously, but I thought it was quite encouraging. It is a call to action for us to do more, to be proactive, and to be consistent in our efforts towards achieving the goal of the SDGs and creating more such platforms for such discussions to be had. Thank you.
Thank you. You can clap for her. I see you're clapping for her. Let's hear from someone from this point. I'm just coming today. I know you have a lot of wisdom. Please, can you say this?
Hi everyone, my name is Esther, and to just answer the question, maybe okay, like even my friend had just said, we cannot really judge from our first session, but hoping that there may be skill building activities that we can be able to engage in to maybe learn more about even the sustainable development goals as we engage in dialogue conversation.
Thank you. Let's also clap for her for this. Thank you. I've realized only ladies have spoken. Let me hear from a gentleman on this table who has not been able to speak. Have you been able to speak today? Tell us your name and where you're from and where.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ngigi Brian. I am from Green Economy for Kenya. I am happy, and concerning the time, I think we see, for example, it stated that we should start at 13:00 hours. So we are youths, and I believe hata si issue ya kuamka mapema, we can be here at the exact time, maybe next time, so that we can have enough time to explore different ideas. Thank you.
Let us clap for him. In short, he said we are being Africans. We said we'll be here at 1, and then people arrive here at 2. Now everyone wants to speak. I don't hear from one person who has not spoken.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I must be thankful for this session. My name is John Linus. I'm from UNESCO Youth Forum. And I would like to say that everyone here is doing a great job. And I would like to appreciate you doing that. Because I've been following a number of you online. Meeting physically has been a challenge, but I'm able to learn from different angles and different persons since I visit this room. My idea is that I've seen that we have innovative solutions to this problem that we are talking about. But the most challenge that we have is that we don't have capacity. And the thing is, I see a number of us have been empowered, and you can say that there are platforms that they can equally empower a number of people to know what it entails and how they can equally bring their ideas on board. So I would like to congratulate everyone who has come on board. Keep up with the good work, and I think it is through idea sharing that we grow. And with this generation, I hope that one day the world will say that we want that brains to change the world. So I'm grateful and thankful for participating here. Thank you.
Let us clap for him. So, I think this is a good time for us to close. And let us a very pressing issue. Is it a very pressing issue? Yes. One. So we'll take those two pressing issues. Let us start from Tony. Then we'll come here and then we'll close for him. We need to stop being African.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is not an issue just to share opportunities. I have three opportunities to share with you guys. So the first one is next week on 22nd, right? Next week, Wednesday. 22nd, we'll be hosting an event here. It's called How to Create Your Own Unplug. To commemorate the Mental Health Hygiene Month. We're going to unplug how young people should become activated. We're going to unplug how young people can maintain their mental health among other people. So I'll share with Arnold on his WhatsApp so that if he has a database for all of you, he can share that via the email. So we'll hold him accountable. So you want how to hold him accountable? You start with Arnold. That's the first opportunity. And then on the same day, we'll be advertising I run a master class for young people. I know my fellows are here, young professionals, plus students. So the same date we'll be launching the second cohort for the master class by Olela Tony. So for those who are interested, you can come, you will see it online. The fellows who are here, you can also take advantage of that. The last opportunity, on 8th and 9th of August this year, we are planning to host what we call African Employability Summit. Please don't miss that summit. I beg, don't miss that summit. So those are very key opportunities. I know my colleague is in another meeting doing it, and then next, so nimeshare tatu hizo pekee, zingine pia ziko, but I've been limited with time. You can, I've been told by my boss that you can follow me on my social media handles, but not YouTube. You see, otherwise, and also keep on doing what you are doing best. Lots of any advice, just those three opportunities. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. So before okay, let me give this to the rest of the picture.
I noticed the question on copyright for patenting wasn't covered, or so I thought. There's a trick we learned. I am a journalist profession, development communication. So really, with Spotify, so there's something about ideas being stolen, especially with the creatives, but can also be applied in other industries. If you decide to go the formal way, you can reach out to Kipra for licensing of your patent, but that may take time, resources, and a lot of research. But you can also outline everything you have, make sure that it's dated, and then with everything that's formal in terms of your information, whether that's a registration number or something, or your formal name, and then post that to yourself. Post that. You send that to yourself. So for instance, if it's me, I'd send it to Christine Karanja. So I receive it. So in essence, when poster stamps that, that's a legal document you've gotten from the government, and you can always present this in future when whatever idea is contested. But then you make sure you get it, so that if there is question as to who came up with what first, that is a shortcut in terms of protecting your idea. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So You are welcome to please come and sit here. Yeah. Thank you so much for the wonderful interactive slide. Please. So the last person that I'd like to give this chance to is Josek. Josek, please come and say something about partnership in a minute or less. Then we'll take a photo and let me answer.
Hi everyone. Yeah, very well. I just want to appreciate making that decision to be here and to lead this conversation. I believe this is not the end of everything, but it's just the beginning of it. My name is Joseph where I work for YALI, Alumni Chapter of Kenya, in the Department of Partnership and Resource Mobilization as the chair of that department. And as we are working, I want to appreciate my brother Arnold and his organization and my youth for SDGs because we are working together as a team. And I want just to say that all of us, if you have the organization here today, you are open. Come talk to us. When we work together, we are able to pull our resources together. We are able to actually have that voice, meaningful voice that will take whatever decisions that we are discussing here to the next level. Because currently, si kitambo walikuwa anasema sisi ndio viongozi wa kesho, the leaders, isn't it? But that notion we are refusing because we want now to sit on the dining table, not as waiters, but we want to be there as food. As diners, isn't it? We want to know what is there and what is our take and what can we take. So I don't want to go into more speeches because a lot has been shared, has been discussed here, and mine is just to appreciate all of you and all of us that if you have an organization, be it in climate change, in entrepreneurship, in STEM, everything that you can do, please, let's have that conversation, let's talk and all that. How many are alumni here? Oh, great. Yes. I'm saying this because this American corner, Moi, it is open to all of us, isn't it? One of the four pillars of the American corner, one of them is an engagement with US-based alumni, and YALI being one of them. So in the event that you have anything that you want to discuss, please talk to the management at this place and are able to offer you an opportunity. So, and that does not mean that if you're not an alumni, you cannot also hold a program here. Just talk to the management, discuss, and they can still give you an opportunity. And that's what we are having. And I don't know whether you are aware that there's another American corner here in Nairobi. Are you aware? There is a new American corner here in Nairobi at Maktabaku. Visit there. We have already started doing some programs there also. And so that we can see how we can benefit ourselves. So thank you very much. Let's be open to opportunities. Let's be open to partnership so that we can pull our resources together so that we can advance our cause. Thank you and enjoy your evening.
Thank you so much, Josek, for that. So at this point, we'd like to do the group photo, please. Do not go. We can start with the online team because I know if we start to block the screen, so we'll not be able to take a photo of all of us. So for those who are online and are able to open their camera, could you please do so that our colleague Molindi can take a photo? This is a group photo for our online participants. Those who are able to open their camera. Notes, you can take the group photo and the camera. Oh, there you are. Let me see. This is Peter Bulimo. Peter Bulimo, thank you so much for that. So anyone else would like to? So maybe you can take the photo on gallery mode so that Really, we go. Can you please the phone? Thank you for that. Yeah. No, this is very important. Yeah, we do more qualification, please. Student. Please, do your. One second. Please. Things will go beyond.
We start the Young African Leaders Initiative. It is a group of young people who are demonstrating leadership traits. And it's a group that was founded by the former president of the US, Barack Obama, about 10 years ago when he came. And Young is into three categories. One is Mandela Fellowship Washington. Another one is Young Regional Centers that are four in Africa. That is one of them is in East and Central Africa at Kenyatta University. Then we have one in Ghana, another one in Senegal, and then South Africa, Pretoria. The third category of YALI is YALI network, the one that you can go online and register. Then you can do some free courses there, good resources, learning resources that you can get an e-certificate that when you go to the interview are asked, what else do you have besides your degree, and you can be able to present. So we yearly, all alumni, we are about 1,700 in Kenya, and we are being empowered in three areas. One of them is business and entrepreneurship. Another one is public management, and then we have civic and leadership. The program takes place at Kenyatta University. It's very competitive. 14 countries, they all join hands. They come to Kenyatta University. Applications about 7,000 per application, but then they only need 100 per session. So it's very, very competitive. But in the event you are, they're looking for people who are at least you're doing something that will be not just people who want to be taught or people who want just to go there for the sake of going. So you must be doing something like now participating in such kind of forums. It makes you stand a better chance to win. For more information, please talk to us. We are still here, and we also help people apply. Not we apply for you. We give you free, what do you call them? Tips on how you can go about application. We help you to maybe look at your essay and tell you this is making sense or it's not, does not make sense, so that you stand a better chance of getting that opportunity. Thank you very much. Yeah, for more information, we are here. Just talk to any other alumni in this room and you'll be able to be assisted. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Have we clapped for ourselves, by the way? Can we clap for ourselves for getting the journey to the beginning? Let us pat ourselves on the back for the good job. Thank you so much. So this time I'd like to invite us to the bronze. Tunaweza kuja kwa mwendo asi kuje tujipange hapa unaangalia na then we get a very nice good portion. The photos will be in Delhi before midnight today.